Alrighty, so who are you and what is your story?
My name is Josh Johnson. I'm a local educator, art gallery president. I'm the president and CEO of 621 Art Gallery. It's a 41-year-old space that galvanizes community, contemporary art, activism, social issues, everything you can think about. And so between my education background and the art gallery, I think you find a good mixture of Josh Johnson. I believe deeply in certain things, and those things I believe should be expressed through teaching or doing. And so the teaching allows me to impart that knowledge. The gallery allows me to put that knowledge into action. I have not always done those things. I've had a checkered background. I started off as a local activist. I went to school at FAMU. And activism hit me hard because through the course of my time there, two really big events happened. One of them was Martin Lee Anderson, which is a lesser known case, which is sad in itself, of a young man who was beat to death on the grounds of a detention facility right outside of Panama City, Florida, if I'm not mistaken. And so while that always was in my periphery and in my background and informed the type of things that I became interested in, right after college or during my senior year of college, the big thing happened. And the big thing was Trayvon Martin. And it wasn't just the case for the case's sake. I actually remember vividly sitting on the sofa that night, watching the verdict. I was actually sitting beside my roommate, who was a white guy at the time, and we were tuned into this thing, right, two college students. And the conversation we had before it was cool because we kind of both agreed that this thing was going to go one way. And so we all know how it turned out, and so I don't have to go into that. But what I will go into is the minute I stood up off of that sofa, I had changed. It was a watershed moment in my life. And so criminal justice reform, the restoration of civil rights, how we look at restorative justice mandates, these things became not just interest of mine or not just things that I wouldn't mind protesting or being an activist around. They actually became things that I started consuming. And so I went back to school and I got my master's, and I didn't get my master's in criminal justice. I got my master's in global securities, but it's how you look at global economies, because one of the things that I saw was that race or social issues in so many areas boil down to class, right? And how we have put people in the boxes of what they make or how they do or what they wear to work. And so these things have interested me throughout my life, and as a man, not only do they inform my teaching style, but they inform the way that I live my life. It's no secret to a lot of people that I've had several brushes with local politics, and those things too are just a manifestation of the boy who stood up off that sofa one day.
Absolutely, and you speak about two cases, one that was a pivotal moment in American history was the Trayvon Martin case, and I think it gave everyone a closer look of where we truly are. You know, personally, as a young American, like, I would love to think that everyone is equal, but cases like that and cases that we've dealt with before and after that always bring to the light where we actually are in this country. So I want to go back. You said you changed when you stood up off that couch. Mentally, what changed with you? Because I know it's as a white man in this country, I can only attempt to understand the struggle of being a black person in this country. I can only sit here and try to understand. So what was that like, hearing that verdict, and like what specifically changed mentally in you?
Like I said, I'd had brushes with activism. I was a local activist. Before, I think I had a chip on my shoulder, a healthy chip, but a chip nonetheless. Standing up off that sofa, it felt more like a responsibility or a charge to keep, right? That as peripheral or as vague or as cliche as it sounds, I didn't want it to happen to anybody else. Now, I knew that it would, and even if it didn't, it wouldn't be because of the single actions that I took, but I would make sure that the single actions that I took would no longer contribute to this type of thing. They were going to highlight them, they were going to fight against them, and so you can't just pick it, right? You also have to be interested in policy, right? You can't just march. You have to also be interested in how these things manifest. And so that was the shift for me. Not so much of a mindset, but what I was going to do with the mindset.
And I think that's a struggle that a lot of people deal with. You know, we always try and look inward and see like, oh, what could I be doing more? And some of us need that moment to be like, you know, I thought I was doing enough, but now I know now I need to do more. For those people that feel like they need to do more, what is your advice to them?
So it would be two-pronged. The first thing is I would want to stay away from sounding condescending, because everybody of every background still has a personal life and their own personal struggles. And so sometimes not doing more or not feeling like you're doing more is the result of an outward pressure that doesn't understand what you have going on. And so I don't want to be that person, but to be the person that I would be to my younger brother if he was still living, or to my students, or to the thousands of people that have voted for me over the years or whatever, I would say that the actions that you take, right, have to make difference. And if the actions that you take don't make differences, even at a small level, like I was just having an argument with a colleague about whether kids who post stuff on their Instagram stories can still be counted as doing something that's in the realm of activism. And sure you can, right? Because for every 700 friends you have, I'm sure there was one of them that didn't even know that this was happening. And there's another 300 that disagreed with you. And there's another 50 that are now going to take a closer look just because it was you posting it. And so your grain of sand doesn't have to be my boulder, because one day when I'm peddling a grain of sand, I also won't compare it to your boulder. You just have to satiate your conscience, but your conscience can't just be rooted in how you're living, because we do all come with our own set of privileges, more some than others. And so recognizing those things and weaponizing those things is the first step, I think.